In August 2016, we had a report of a Hurricane Earl that was supposed to hit Belize. People are franticing, people are rushing to higher grounds as Belize is a low-lying country below sea level, and we're on the coast, so people are moving inland to be safe. On the night of the hurricane, there was no power. We were just sitting around in our homes with our families, just waiting for the storm to pass and praying, hoping that everybody is safe out there. In the morning when he woke up, you could have seen debris all over the place. Trees have fallen down, water is flooded, garbage is flowing all over the place. I turned on my phone as I turned it off because in order to save power, since we didn't have any, immediately my phone rang. And it was this guy calling me to tell me that there is an orphan manatee that needs to be rescued. On the way, we were driving through water on the road everywhere. There are places where we actually found boats in the middle of the highway. So when I got to the location, I realized that the location is actually not on the water. I'm thinking to myself, I must be at the wrong place. I called him and he said, yes, it was at a motel. He said, drive into the back. And I'm like, into the back? The sea is on the right. You're telling me to come on the left. Then I realized when I saw it, it was literally like a small plastic bag just in a small puddle of water. And it somehow may have, with the storm surge, washed out of the sea, across the marina, across or one of the major highways in Belize, through the backyard of a motel, and lands in the backyard of a motel in a small puddle of water. I can imagine that calf was out there in that grassland, an entire night in the dark, in the rain, in storm, in thunder, and lightning, things that a calf had never experienced. I wouldn't wish or hope any young species of any kind would experience loneliness in a hurricane by itself. I watched it for a second and I realized it was just frantic. I walked over, I picked it up, and coincidentally my hands were placed under its heart, and for a second it felt like everything around me just stopped. And all I could have heard and all I could have felt was boop, 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 boop. Her heart's just racing. And I just clutched it up onto my body to give it a sense of safety, to know that it's not going to fall or it's in a safe place. And it stopped again and I felt it just start slow down. Boop, 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 boop. And that is a huge appreciation for me because it makes me realize that, you know what, she recognized that she's in a safe place and that I could have brought a little bit of comfort to it. We loaded it up into the truck, and we started to make our way to the rehabilitation center. But I realized a weird behavior by the calf, and I also noticed that it still had its umbilical cord attached, telling me that it must have been 1 or 2 days old. It's a very, very young calf. I've never interacted with a manatee that young. Every time it wanted to breathe, it was sticking its head up, which is a normal behavior of a manatee. When they're born, their mother would put them on their back and bring them to the surface so that they know where to come to get air. And what I realized is that she's sticking her head up and she's holding her breath. It's kind of like she's looking for that watermark, looking for that change in transition from water to air. And just sticking her head up and not feeling that transition, she's fighting not to breathe. Like she doesn't want to breathe because she's thinking that I'm underwater. And I realized that if we didn't do something now, this calf will die on us because it's just not a natural behavior. We turned around and rushed into one of the grocery stores nearby, and he went in to buy a small pool, filled it up with water, and he put it in water, and automatically we could have seen a change in his behavior. That it realized now I'm in water, he's sticking her head up to breathe, and she was more contented. I could have heard it vocalizing, and manatees don't normally vocalize except between the mother and its calf, and I could have heard it go. I don't speak manatee, but to me it translates as if it's calling out for its mother, just wanting mommy, and I can imagine the mother is somewhere out there just pacing all over the place, looking frantically for their calf, because manatees are loving species. They're particularly between a mother and a calf. They're very, very strongly bonded. To me, it broke my heart to hear it because I couldn't give it what it wants. Obviously, I couldn't give her back to her mother because it's just not. We're just not able to do so. But it was transported to the rehabilitation center. It got there safely. Everybody was impressed by the size and such young. Nobody have ever handled a manatee that young in the entire country. Hope now is a full-fledged manatee. She's on her way to be released back into the wild. She's a very active, happy manatee. I can't pick her up like I did that day, but that to me is the most rewarding part of our job, knowing that you're giving these animals another chance of survival. And hope is exactly what the words mean. It's a light in a dark tunnel. Hope came at a time of tragedy, at a time of sadness, but it's that small little candle in that dark place that tells a nation, that tells a people, that tells a population, tells a species that, you know what, there is hope. I grew up in Gales Point, Manatee, a small coastal community. I spent the majority of my time between my grandmother's property in Gales Point and my mother in Belize City, where I grew up in one of the most poverty-ridden area, crime, violence, drugs. Um, Majority of my friends and and even family members have died from gang violence, some in prison. I could have gone that way as well. I'd had so much pressures to have gone that way. I'm fortunate that at a young age, I developed a passion for manatees, that I spent majority of my time helping orphan manatees in rehabilitation, tracking wild manatees, helping with research efforts. And I think that my interest in the species was that kept me on the right path. So people see me as saving manatees' life, but they saved my life first. To me, some people are meant to be pilots, doctors, lawyers, photographers, filmmakers, and some people are just meant to be manatee rescuers, and that's me. I wouldn't give this job up for anything in the world. And if I had another job, I'll do it for free.